shared danger creates uncommon bonds and friendships. They never go away, no matter what changes in your life, no matter where you go in your life. You never forget the experiences, you never forget the people. My most important asset, if you will, is the crew that I have and the people that are on board, making sure that when the time comes and we go into harm's way, that we can carry out our mission successfully and come back safely.
I think it takes a special breed of person. Being on a submarine or any kind of confined space, but particularly a submarine, is not for everybody. There are many people who would not last 5 minutes on a submarine, even if it wasn't even submerged. A person who's claustrophobic would in no way be somebody who would want to be assigned to a submarine. Other people who are not claustrophobic, that would not bother them. People who can tolerate long periods of kind of isolation from their family may be okay for submarine duty, but if they can't tolerate that, that would not be something that they would willingly choose to be assigned to. So, you know, people cope differently. And the human mind is amazing in its ability to cope with situations. What might be very scary for one person is not frightening for somebody else.
Diving officer, submerged ship, make your depth 6'5" feet. Submerged ship, make my depth 6'5" feet. Diving officer, the watch eye. Chief of the watch with the 1MC, dive. 7-2 blast ships, diving alarm, dive.
1MC, dive, 2 blast, diving alarm, dive, right? Dive. Dive.
3-2 feet.
My first interest was really how to get through college, because I was a sophomore at OU, and basically I had worked for 2 years after high school for driving a van for an insurance company, saving up my money to go away to college. And then I had enough money for my first year. So I went down there, and I was in electrical engineering, and I wasn't sure how I was going to pay for the rest of my school because I didn't have any financial aid. But I was walking through the dorm one day, and there was a bulletin up there. It said, you can earn up to $1,100 a month for your college degree. And right away, that popped my interest, so I mailed off the little pamphlet. And 2 weeks later, I get a call from a guy from Cincinnati, a lieutenant, who actually had been a teacher of mine when I was at the Catholic school up in Cleveland about 15 years earlier, so he had known me. And he said, hey, we got this program for college students that are engineering types, physics types. What you do is you actually enlist in the Navy, and they give you a $4,000 bonus. And then they give you $1,100 a month, full benefits and everything. And all you have to do is get A's and B's in all your engineering courses. You had to have over a 3.5 or something to get into it initially, so I said, wow, that's a lot of money. I mean, we're looking at $25,000 before I even finished. So I came down to Charleston and got a tour of a submarine and everything, and I got scared. I said, I can't do this. You know, I was 19 years old. I said, I'm not ready enough to make this decision, and I thought I was just doing it for the money. So I said, thank you very much, but no thanks, and I went back to my college and said, well, we'll see what happens. And it turns out I got some loans, and I did some summer jobs. And then I get halfway through my senior year, and I had a job offer from NASA, Lewis Research Center up in Cleveland. But I had worked there that previous summer, but it just wasn't all that exciting. And I wasn't ready to, get a job and kick back and live in suburbia. So I looked at the program again, but this time for all the right reasons.
40 feet. Okay, get your bubble up.
Decks awash.
Decks wash high. Turbulence maintain 3 now.
Hey, Mom, going on the submarine. She, mouth open up. No, my baby. Submarines? Are those type of boats that go underwater? I said, yes, Mom. She goes, what made you want to do that? Why did you get a wild idea to do something like that?
Master Roberson came on board in the latter part of last spring. When he came on board in my initial interviews with him, I noted right away that he is a well-spoken, well-mannered, and seemed like a very dedicated individual.
I got here and we went on a 3-month deployment, and I was 3 months underway, under the water. Just fresh from home, I was saying, it was hitting me fast. So I catch myself, I'm underwater, rocking and rolling. Oh no, this is not for me. So then time passed and I met the crew, got real acquainted with all the guys. I was saying, well, it's pretty good. Everyone real friendly, showing me all the boat, helped me out a lot. And I set me a little schedule. I said, I'm gonna work on 6 hours of crawls, 6 hours of sleep, 6 hours of watch, because we have a 18-hour watch rotation, 18-hour working day. So that was my goal.
In 5 months, he accomplished what is normally taken anywhere from, say, a year to 15 months. He completed all of his watch station qualification. He completed his submarine qualification, went through his qualification board, did extremely well on it, and he took a lot of his efforts and put them to constructive use.
Have pivot engaged.
Have pivot engaged. I lock the weapon.
On the rapid side. Stand clear, ramming the weapon.
Ram the weapon line.
Backup weapon. Push ready. Ship ready. Weapon rating. Percent fuel range 73%. Doppler 4 knots. All ships protected with dash. Weapon ready. Shoot on generated bearing. And battle station. Door open. Double locked. Ejection pump door is open. 3, 2, 1. Stand by. Shoot at 2.
Course 180. Lunch enable 1400 yards.
7. Shot looks good.
I'm a cook, I'm an MS, and I was surface before I came subs. And I came as an E5. And I couldn't believe the difference in the two lifestyles. I was on an aircraft carrier and an LSD, and then I came here, and on an aircraft carrier, all they know is that the dinner rolls are there, and the bread is there, and the hamburger rolls and hot dogs. That stuff just all comes. Like when they were home and mommy went to the store and got it. These guys actually see this stuff being prepared. They walk by the galley. They can't go anywhere on the boat without walking through the mess decks. And they see all that stuff. And the night baker throws out a couple dozen cookies while they're hot. And I think the cooks get a lot more respect. I can do a lot more with a lot less on a submarine. At the same time, if we have a drill period or whatever, I have no problem with this senior chief or this chief if they're standing around. I don't even have to tell them I need help setting up the mess decks. You know, it just happens. Where on the surface, I don't know if I want to use the word unionized. You know, it's completely different. I came subs because it just intrigued me. I didn't have any spiels from submarine sailors. My CO on my surface craft said, you can do too much to be up here and be unappreciated. Try subs. And that was about the extent of his conversation. And they screened me and I made it. And you know, for me, it's unique.
Your speed, take charge of plane, zero bubble, full rise, fair water plane.
Brought in 8,000 pounds.
Secure shallow water depth gauges.
The job itself is inherently dangerous. First of all, you're underneath the water.
On a surface ship, all you do is if you just stop running, you go dead in the water. On a submarine, there's always the potential to just keep going down.
Definitely. There's a potential to die here. There's a big potential to die here. If you don't get something right, if you don't recover from a casualty correctly, you can die. Plain and simple, no offense or buts about it.
But on a surface ship, you just bob in the water for a while.
On a surface ship, you're on top of the water. They'll send a helicopter or something out there to make sure you're okay. But underneath the water, sometimes you're places where no one knows you're there until it's too late.
Fire Machinery 1! Dominus
The only time I was really scared was, I think I had been on board about a week, and I was sleeping in my rack, and it was about 2 in the morning, and over the 1MC, our announcing system, the officer deck called away a fire, and it was an honest-to-God fire. I mean, we have drills all the time, but I woke up and you smell smoke. It turned out to be a small fire, but you'd be amazed at how quickly the men on the ship will react and how well trained they are to combat a casualty. And we have drills almost daily when we're out to sea. And we will just critique these things until we're blue in the face. We didn't do this right, we didn't do this right, we were slow to do this, and on and on and on. And me being an ensign on board about a week, I basically stood there in my underwear with the trout look, which is, you show that a lot on board, and I didn't know what to do. I was useless. I was of no use to anybody. While all these guys are running around grabbing fire hoses, fire extinguishers, securing ventilation, I just sat and watched.
Close to 90% of all the time we spend on a ship is in some way related to training. And that's, you know, to me, that's the only way you can be ready to go out and carry the battle to the enemy. If you don't train as a team, if you don't train to go out and do that, to fight, you know, not only with everything working, but also to fight with, you know, damage to the ship. When you get in the situation, if you haven't trained to do that, you may find yourself and difficulty.
Is the patrol line, we still need to report if the flooding has stopped or not?
I have total responsibility for the ship, the crew, everything we do, and I have no problem with that. I accept that. I wouldn't have put on the command pin if I wasn't ready to accept that. But one of the things I try to teach the people in the crew is that they also have a responsibility. You know, they have a responsibility to do the job that they're sent here and they're trained to do, and they have an accountability for that as well. I mean, the people of the country expect them to do their job and do it correctly, and everybody on the ship expects everyone as well to do their job. You know, the submarine, once you go underwater, you either live or die together. There's no real in between, and everyone is trained to respond to whatever the situation is, so that you do survive and come back. And you have to be able to depend on that guy next to you, and you have to develop that trust of the guy next to you. And I think that's part of what the dolphins are. When you get the dolphins, you've proven to the rest of the people that wear them that you have taken the time and effort, you have learned the ship, and I'm talking the entire ship. You know, the guy you put on the dolphins, you studied this ship from stem to stern, the systems, procedures, and you're capable of, no matter what compartment you're in or where you are, if a casualty occurs, responding to that casualty, taking the initial actions that could quite possibly save the ship and everybody in the crew. And that goes a long way with why our training program is so rigorous. You know, I look at the crew as, first of all, they are people, and they have needs and requirements just like everybody else. And I view part of my job as making sure that whatever those needs are, that they get fulfilled, or if they have problems, that they get resolved. And if I need to go to whatever level I need to go to resolve a problem, whether it's, you know, personal, pay, whatever, I'll do that. Because to me, if a person is thinking about other problems, then he's not able to concentrate or give me completely 100% of his mind at a critical time. If we're in a war situation, whatever, I need him to be thinking about the job at hand and, you know, putting ordnance on target, if you will, and then getting out of there so we can return to fight another day.
We just finished our flooding stop.
Flooding stop. Flooding stop.
It's very difficult for an ensign who's usually 23 or 24 years old when he first walks on board to find his niche, because the first day he walks on board, he's going to have guys working for him that are his age or younger and older. And we're all human, we all want to be accepted. So he wants to be liked, yet he also has a job to do. And there's a very fine line you have to walk. And we've all learned through making mistakes about fraternization that there's just a line you can't cross.
Historically, where that comes from, that separation between officer and enlisted, and even between the upper level and lower level enlisted, there's also some separation there. The chiefs clearly have a different day-to-day life than the lower ranked enlisted individuals do. You know, I think it boils down to the fact that in the military, at any point in time, there's always the potential for a war scenario. And in a war, the one thing that you do not want going democratic process, you don't want everybody saying, those who think we ought to shoot rifles, raise your hand, and those who think we ought to shoot other kinds of guns, raise your hand. That will not work in a wartime situation. What you want is a designated leader, that when that leader says, we will do this, everybody says, yes, sir, we will do that. They've done a lot of studies in the world of social psychology looking at that particular issue. And the one thing that enlisted say is, look, you know, what I want in my commanding officer is somebody who has authority, who takes authority, and who serves as a leader. And I don't want somebody who can't make a decision and, you know, in this democratic process. Not in that scenario, not when there's a wartime situation, because it's too confusing. You have to have a chain of authority that the commanding officer says something and it's passed down to the junior officer, to the senior enlisted, and to the lower rate enlisted. And everybody knows what that rule is.
At least in that respect, it's no different on board a submarine than it is anywhere else. It's just that you have a little bit more personal knowledge of the individuals that serve on board, because we are, I mean, when we're underway, I mean, there's no escaping. It's not like you can go 4 decks and 700 feet away. I mean, we all eat in fairly close proximity. We tour the ship frequently, and we see everybody. So there is, I hate to use the term familiarity, but there is a certain kind of unofficial acknowledgement that there is a special relationship between individuals that probably doesn't exist on board a larger command.
I can walk up to the captain on this thing and not feel intimidated to walk up to the captain and answer, oh God, you know, and he can immediately understand what I'm talking about. I find it amazing, and found it amazing when I came as an E5, that the chief can understand that E4 having problems with his qualifications, or give him a boot if he needs it, and talk to that kid and understand him a lot better. I mean, they see you every day. They know, you know, you ain't sleeping in better racks. You're not eating different food. You're eating on the mess decks with them. You're eating at the same time. It builds more of an esprit de corps, I think. It's a fully working relationship. I mean, sometimes it's like a bad marriage, and sometimes it's like a good marriage. But once they close those hatches, it's a marriage. You got no choice.
My husband's job would consume our whole family. You know, It's never ending. It does come home with him now. The phone doesn't stop ringing. The kids answer the phone basically, "It's the boat, Dad." It's our life.
They have to deal with the real possibility that he may die. I mean, that accidents happen in the military, and not just war situations, but actually, tragic accidents can happen. There are always explosives around in the military situation of some type, and so that kind of makes it where there's sort of a life threat almost every day. Not enormous life threat necessarily, but it's always there, and it's in the back of their minds. And then, in addition to them being gone a lot, all of a sudden, they're back. And yes, the wife who has been the wife, the mother, the father, the caretaker, the boss of the household, is now faced with somebody coming back into that situation. And are they supposed to relinquish running the household, which they've been doing very, very effectively for 3 months, now that, Daddy's back and, as you said, maybe he's a captain, he's used to having his way in running it. So there is a constant stage of adjustment to him being gone, and then getting kind of used to that, and then anticipating him coming home, and then he comes home, and the wonderful romance and reunion that happens there, and then you sort of get into the grind of day-to-day life, and now he wants to reestablish himself as sort of the head of the household, but you've been doing fine, thank you very much, without him for 3 months. And then as he gets ready to go on a cruise, to sort of then start kind of withdrawing a little bit and sort of getting ready and sort of bracing yourself for the fact that he's going to be leaving.
Because their time is so precious, we just don't fight. I don't know too many submarine wives that do, because they figure, why waste the time you have with them fighting? Except the week before they leave, you tend to get distant and you get picky, because it's easier to say goodbye to somebody you're mad at than it is to say goodbye to somebody you're madly in love with. It's a defense mechanism that. And they tell you that it's okay to feel that way, because the first time I did, I thought, oh my goodness. But then I learned, and he did the same thing. And the second time he went away, I said, we always fight the last week. It's just not fair. And then I went to a workshop, and the one woman said, it's your defense mechanism. It's easier to say goodbye, and it's easier for him to say goodbye if you're a little bit upset with him.
Also, my husband, I asked him to keep a journal of not necessarily what he does, but how he feels, and I try to do the same for him. And I enjoy reading it when he comes home, because it helps me understand what he's going through. I think a lot of the times the wives say, well, me, and I have to do all this, and I have to do all this, but I think it's very difficult for the husbands to leave the wives just as much. My husband says, I think it's so hard because I'm always the one that's leaving. You've never had to leave and see, us standing there, waving. So by keeping a journal, I can understand certain days things that he is feeling and thinking, and it's helped me a lot.
I get angry. It's real hard, or it's real easy to get caught in a trap of saying, wait a minute, they're doing something they love to do when they're out to sea. They don't have any responsibilities except for their job. They get port calls if they're on a fast boat and get to have fun, get off, get to go play golf, drink, whatever they want to do. And you're stuck at home, leading a married life, but you're single, having all the responsibility. It's real hard to not get real caught up in that anger. You can't, but it's hard not to.
I don't worry. I get more scared getting out in my car and driving on the freeway than I would with him in a submarine. I feel it's one of the safest places to be, because everyone is so competent with competent leadership, and that's very important.
My husband always says if there was a war or anything, that's the place he'd want to be, to save his place. Yeah. And him being that confident makes me confident. I don't think I've ever really thought about it. When the war came about, maybe a few times, but that was more panic from the mother-in-law. He's there. It's like, the family. He's the safest place he could be.
That's right. Yeah. And families have a difficult time accepting the fact that you can't tell them where their son is. They just honestly believe that you're keeping it from them.
Yeah.
Right. And it causes more family problems in more families than not.
Or when are they coming home? Well, why can't you name the date over the phone? It's classified until 24 hours before they're due into port. And it is. It's my father-in-law, my husband's been in 20 years, and my father-in-law, you'd think after 20 years would know. And I keep saying to him, I'm being as honest and upfront as I can be with you. I said, I don't know. In fact, None of us here, we truly don't know when we're going to see our husbands until we see the whites of their eyes.
6'5". All right, Bill, let's go through your room. Clear.
Someone who can be gone a lot, like say, several months at a time, and someone who may not be there when you have your last baseball game of the season, but may be there for the first. He may be there for your son's birth, but then again, he may not. I think he's someone that goes out and does a job for the country that, to allow kids, like my own son, why do I do the job? And I have to say, I do it because I want to make sure that my wife and my son are able to live the life that they have now, I can protect. I go out to protect that way of life. I've sworn an oath to do that, to uphold the Constitution. What would I say to my own son? I mean, he's asked me, why do I do this? And I go, well, you can say it's a job, and it is, but it's more than a job. It's something that I like doing, but it does involve separation. And, I tell the kids, that each person, whether you're a child or, a wife, whoever, an older child, teenager, every person is different, and, it is stressful, and there are different ways to cope with that stress, and I think it changes over time. What I mean by that is, the way my son copes with the separation now is different than how he coped, 3 years ago. And, you have to recognize that people, their emotions and their feelings are dynamic, and people do change as they grow older, especially children. And one of the things my wife and I try to do is whenever I come back from being gone, she'll bring me up with what's happened with my son over the time I've been gone, and what's changed, and what he's been doing, what he's going to be doing in the future here, or as far as the school, and how he does cope, what she has found that is different now, that how he's changed. I can remember, when he was 2 years old, he had a difficult time with remembering who I was. At 2 years, it's kind of hard, and we don't have a lot of pictures. I don't have a lot of pictures of myself around the house or anything. So one of the crewmen happened to take a shot of me up on the bridge of the ship. I took this picture, and I gave it to him, and whenever I was gone, he would always have this picture with him, and he would carry it around the house and take it in the car, and he would just look at it and remember who I was, and tell me this is my daddy.
Although it's 25 years old, it's still a very capable ship, and still can compete with basically just about the best of them. There are certain things that it can't do. I would say that it's frustrating to see it going under the knife, but it's one of those things that kind of would eventually happen anyway. And I understand in the fiscal constraints and I don't want to say lack of money, but the need to to make sure that the funds that are being expended are spent in the right place, I can understand why they have decided to place the USS Ray at rest.
A lot of submarines are going away, but there's only a few being made. So you'll see the community in the submarines shrink down to a considerably smaller size.
Well, like I said earlier about the criteria for being a submariner, and the standards are so high that they're basically, they're not going down, and they're basically just looking at all the standards a little harder, and they're saying, well, is this guy over fat? You know, maybe he don't need to be on submarines. Well, did this guy have a medical problem? He maybe don't need to be on submarines. Whereas sometimes they waived them before or whatever, and now they really can't afford to do that because they want to keep the top of the top quality on submarines. So it's going to be a real hard weeding out process if they do start getting rid of people in submarines, which they have really.
The young guys are going to take it. Yeah. Take the heat.
Yes, they are.
You know, the kid who works for that year and gets his dolphins, and who knows, after this boat, is he going to have a home? You know, on submarines. It'd be interesting to see. It's going to be real interesting to see, because I think, well, it's fairly obvious the whole military is being restructured.
I think, there'll always be a submarine force only because of the nature of what we do. We can go into places that other people would have a difficult time going into to carry out a mission. You know, I'd like to think of ourselves as the original stealth machine, if you will. We've been doing it now for 91 years. You know, I can go out and remain on station for an extended period of time, as long as 90 days or more, and have no one there know that I'm there, but be there if I'm needed to carry out whatever the National Command Authority wants me to do. You know, I can gather intelligence covertly where people wouldn't know that I was doing it, so they wouldn't be able to counter or know that I had, or that the United States had the information that I collect. I could be in a position to strike without anyone knowing I was there if that was needed. You know, it's a powerful tool to not expect anything or not see anybody off your coast or in the air, and then have a cruise missile go through the front door of whatever building you want it to go through. It can make a powerful statement if it's needed.
A trick that the ship played on me. I had just reported aboard, and it was my first or second time at sea, and I was standing a watch under instruction as diving officer. And the ship wasn't doing very much at the time, so they decided to play with me a little bit, and they had what's called a trim party. We started off with an even trim on the ship so that you know, we're just perfectly buoyant. And they sent about 15 guys to the very after portion of the ship, and that made us act a little bit heavy. So I pumped some water from the aft to forward to try to balance it out. And once I did that, they said, okay, it's time to run forward, and they all ran up forward. And the weight of the water added, plus the 15 people running up, made us heavy forward. So this old diving officer said, what are you doing wrong, Ensign? I said, well, now we're heavy forward, and I started, okay, pump aft. So this went on, and the ship's going like this for about half an hour before they all came up to control and told me what I had done.
Go underwater, and you go out and about, and then you come back up, and you know where you've been. He would know where we've been, but I wouldn't, because they eat eggs for breakfast no matter where the hell we are.
This is a tight group of people, and we have a good time even after having been underwater for 65, 70 days. But it's the worry about how's my wife, although I'm not married. How's my mom? How's the car? What are the Cleveland Indians doing? They're probably in 6th place, but who knows? That sort of thing. And that's what really got old. We were gone all summer, this past summer, and we just didn't know what was going on in the back home. And that's the worst part about it.
We can receive messages, but we normally don't transmit anything. We don't receive mail. So, it can get kind of difficult at times. Hearing from your loved ones, although they can send us some stuff, but we can't send anything back to them, and that can become a hardship.
About the only communication that they receive, particularly for some of the larger subs, is once or twice a week a 40-word familygram that is fairly censored by the Navy. They don't want to provide information that would be very stressful for that crew member where he can't do anything about it. They would not let a wife say, by the way, when you get back, I want a divorce. That would be censored because that's not fair to that crew member to deliver that message when he's then unable to respond back. So once or twice a week they get a 40-word familygram telling them what's going on with their family. I have one crew member who said, yeah, but that's if somebody writes you. You know, you have to have somebody who wants to write you. And so he was fortunate that he had a wife who wrote him, but not everybody has a wife or even a steady girlfriend that can write. And so I think that lack of communication is very stressful on marriages.
2 years in school, 2 years in school, 2 years in school before we even come to a submarine. They invest all that time, your pay, all the instructors for all those different schools, and they ship us across. We start down in like boot camp. Either you're going from Great Lakes up in Illinois or you're down in Florida. And then they transfer you after you go to your A school, which is your basic school, like for machinist mates and electrician mates. Then they send you to nuclear power school. So they transfer you down to Florida. So they're spending money just transferring that guy down there and his family, whatever. And then you go down there for 6 months. Well, then they send you either to Idaho, Connecticut, or up in New York. So you're transferred again in 6 months to go to a prototype, which is a land-based reactor. So then you spend 6 months there qualifying with all the breaks in between. And then they send, then you go to a boat, and then you're requalifying that boat. So they're investing all that time and money in 2 years that you basically have no use to them, send you through all these schools, spend all this time and money, pay, advancement, and everything like that before you even come to a submarine.
The Navy's, in my opinion, was the best service, and the submarine is by far the best segment of the naval service when it comes to excitement, danger, and just responsibility, level of responsibility involved. You just can't. It's really hard to. It's even hard to explain it to our surface guys. The guys, guys who I went to school with, are now serving in the surface fleet. Their concerns are a little different than our concerns. We don't have to worry so much about the people, because our people are generally really pretty good, and they cause very few problems. They're relatively intelligent, and we don't have the same kind of discipline and personnel problems that maybe the surface guys do. Where our intensity, where we have to focus on is the mission of the submarine, and you can't talk about it, but I've done some things that I would never dreamt possible on board this ship and other ships, and that's what keeps me going. It keeps me going to sea, doing the deployments. There's always a chance to do that one thing that you didn't think was possible before, but you come back and you've done it, and you can fly the broomstick from the periscope as you're coming in. That's people, the other submariners know.
You don't hear about what we do a lot, but we've been out there nevertheless over the years. Not only the fast attack boats like the Ray is, but also the fleet ballistic missile submarines. The Polaris boats, Poseidon, the Tridents. We've been out there since 1960, plowing underneath the waves on alert 365 or 66 days a year, whichever, and always ready. And I think that's been one of the hallmarks of the deterrent force that we have, and part of the reason why the world situation as far as the winning of the Cold War, if you will, why that's occurred. We have been out there, and guys, we have people out there right now. There were submarines in the Persian Gulf, by the way. We had several in there, and they did participate in the attacks, and they did some other operations as well. So, it's the same with, all the operations that we've pretty much done. The Grenada experience, there were submarines involved in that. There were submarines down around there when the Panama, we had the problem down in Panama. So, and you don't hear about it a lot, which is unfortunate because, I think people would recognize just what the contribution has been over the years by the submarine force if more of that had come out. But for operational reasons, a lot of times you can't do that.
The part for me that is rewarding is working with the crew. I've got a fantastic crew, fantastic command, and the experiences I've gained as the chief of the boat and working with these people, I don't think there's anything else in my life that's going to compare to that as far as the benefits that I've received.
Man battle station.
For an officer, the Dolphins is, as far as the submarine qualification process goes, that is the end step. You're required to qualify as an engineer officer of the watch, running the power plant back aft, and then once you finish those qualifications, you come forward. You're required to qualify several watch stations up forward, and then the final is the overall qualification as, qualified as an officer in submarines, and that's when you get your Dolphins. And so there's, a little bit of a distinction there between the enlisted and the officer as far as it's kind of a completion of our qualification process on board. And what the Dolphins signify is the commanding officer saying to you that he trusts you to run the ship, that, you can operate his ship and he has full confidence in you. And at night when it's time for him to go to bed, if you have the watch, he's telling you that, he's going to sleep easy, that you're going to be able to run the ship and keep the ship out of danger, not jeopardize the lives of the crew, jeopardize the material condition of the ship, while he's asleep, and still carry out the evolutions that, he's left instructions for you to do. And so it's kind of a great feeling to know that, this big piece of machinery that we're in charge of, that you actually are in charge of, and he's got, full confidence in you running it.
It means pride, because not everyone can wear these. You have to be a submariner in order to have them. You have to go through a lot to get them, so it's pride. They're proud of their job, and they're proud to wear these, and we're proud to wear them along with them.
A young man, 18 years old in some cases, who's gone through a rigorous training experience, if you will, and qualification process, and to see his eyes and his face light up when you pin the Dolphins on him, those moments I'll never forget.
To Michael Jerome Roberson, Torpedoman's May 3rd class, having successfully completed the rigorous professional requirements for qualification in submarines, having gained a thorough knowledge of submarine construction and operation, having demonstrated his reliability under stress, and having my full confidence and trust, I hereby certify that he is qualified in submarines. Signed, W.H. Jordan, Commander, United States Navy, Commanding Officer, USS Ray.
My husband took me on a dependence cruise, and he coerced me to climb up to the bridge, which was a harrowing experience. And I remember going out on the, what are those, Fairwater planes? Is that what they are? Mm-hmm. And being strapped to the Fairwater plane and having this big bulky life vest on. But what was absolutely fabulous was that the Dolphins swam in the wake of the submarine.